So, you got a little erection? You got a little hard on? Course you did, didn't you? Oh my God. Hi guys, long time no see. I've been kind of busy in my everyday life, so it's only now really I'm getting a chance to do a video. So what I wouldn't mind doing today is having a look at this business of unwanted erections. Okay, so I've written a few things down here, and I'd like to go through a few things with you if you have the time and the patience to listen, okay? So, picture this. You have to go into a meeting, okay? And you're really nervous about going into a meeting. And you say to yourself, I must not blush, I must not shake, I must not. And you are really neurotic about this. You know, you're getting palpitations, you've got to go to this meeting, you're really nervous. So you end up going to the meeting. And what happens? The more you tell yourself not to blush, the more you'll blush. The more you tell yourself not to shake, you'll shake. Because the brain does not acquiesce to demands. If you internally demand something, then your brain will push back. This is called paradoxical effort. Now, why am I saying this? Because internally, you have a neurotic, off the charts obsession with not wanting to be gay. Okay? That rigid should statements and all the other things that I've spoken about in previous videos. So, what happens is you demand so hard and so much, and the fear is so present that this is actually, in my opinion anyway, will cause an erection, an unwanted erection. The more you demand, the more you'll get it. So what happens when you do get an unwanted erection? You allow it to be. This is what you do, right? Now, I've got a couple of articles here that I'd like to read to you because I think they're important, okay? Now, I printed this off the internet. This is called Unwanted Erections in Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. Now, notice that this didn't say HOCD. It said Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. Now, before I start, if you want to see this video's reassurance, that's entirely up to you. But this is not meant for reassurance. This is only meant to explain a few things, okay? And while I'm at it, let me just say this. It doesn't matter how much intellectual knowledge that you gather on YouTube or anywhere else. It's not going to do you any good in the long run. And I think it may have been Chrissy Hodges that said at one point, great channel, by the way. If you don't know who Chrissy is, you should check her channel out, okay? She said something about, you know, OCD doesn't respond to logic. It doesn't, you know, you can have all the information and all the argument you want, but this isn't going to help you. What, you know, in the end, what you need to do is the work. This is what you need to do, okay? The amygdala is basically thick as fuck, okay? The amygdala is the alarm system that sends out these false alarms, okay? And it doesn't have any language capacity. So, you know, the amygdala is more likely to respond to behavior than it is to language. So you have to do the work. Now, that being said, I'm going to read you something, okay? if I can see it. The Ruck Lab researchers also work as clinicians within regular psychiatric care. We have met some OCD patients who have reported unwanted erections or lubrication in direct response to violent or sexual obsessions, interpreted as extremely ego-dystonic. Now, ego-dystonic basically means that these intrusive thoughts, intrusive erections, and what have you, it goes against the natural order of things, of yourself. It goes against the grain of who and what you really are. Okay? The first case was a 43-year-old man who reported frequent erections in relations to obsession of becoming a pedophile. Now, before you all fucking start, it doesn't matter whether it's POCD or HOCD. Doesn't matter. It's a sexual obsession. Same thing. Same horse, different jockey, okay? So this is worth listening to. Assessment revealed that he believed he should always be able to control and prevent unwanted erections. His failure to do so made him think that he might be a pervert. The patient was treated with CBT and resumed normal contact with his child without ritualizing and remained symptom-free. The second case was a 38-year-old student who had an erection on at least 2 separate occasions when he had intrusive thoughts of violence to children. He then felt he was on the verge of losing control and attacking the children he was near. He reported that this fear was based on the thought, I already kind of lost control, my body is out of control. He found these erections extremely repugnant. Okay? Now, what I'm about to read you next is from a book called Overcoming Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts. And what I've done is I went on my Kindle and printed off a little segment for you to read, okay? So please listen to this. Why does some of my thoughts feel like impulses? Okay? You know, for example, like a groinal response or, false attraction, a false urge, etc. Okay? Even though unwanted intrusive thoughts are signs of over-control, not impulsivity, you may actually feel that you have to put a lot of effort to keep yourself from acting on these thoughts. This is an illusion. They feel like impulses, even although they are not. You are actually feeling the effects of anxious thinking. Remember that term, anxious thinking, okay? Which is an altered state of awareness. Once your brain sends out an anxiety alarm signal, your perception of many things becomes markedly different. One very consistent change is what psychologists call thought-action fusion, when the line between thoughts and actions become fuzzy and indistinct. Ordinarily, the differences between thoughts and actions are quite clear, and thoughts are a safe way to rehearse actions without consequences. But when you are anxious, this difference seems to fade away. When you fight hard to avoid a thought, anxiety will skyrocket. And so will your perception of the profound differences between private thoughts on the one hand and actions in the real world that have real consequences on the other. And that's from the book Overcoming Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts. Right. I was speaking to a guy not so long ago that has HOCD. We'll call him Harry, okay? I can't reveal who he really is. What do you want from me? We'll call him Harry. Before Harry experienced HOCD, a very scary thing happened to him. And he was working, I think, in the West Country area of England. And he was moving people overseas. And he was, gathering all this stuff, putting them in boxes and that type of thing. And what had happened was there was 2 little boys. I don't know. I can't remember what age he said they were. They were about 10 or something. And he described them as having shorts and a little cap and typical English schoolboys. And for some reason, he had a groinal response, which scared the fucking life out of him. Internally, he obviously has a feeling, that is so repugnant as regards to pedophilia, homosexuality, anything that's untoward. And in that moment, he experienced a groinal response, and he ruminated and ruminated on it for a long, long time. Does that mean he's a pedophile? No, of course not. He's showing every other symptom of obsessive compulsive disorder. So what would make this any different? But the point is, just like all forms of OCD, telling yourself it's OCD, I don't know. It's better to stand up to the uncertainty and to the possibility that you could be whatever it is that you fear. So I wanted to address something that's become very dear to my heart, and that's the subject of rumination. And the reason why is because in a video called Obsessive Compulsive Disorder and the Horror of Intrusive Thoughts and the Terror of Pure Obsession, I speak about a time when I was working nights and I was living in a clouded reality. And my mind was awash with intrusive thoughts. Now, that's true. But I've since come to realize, since studying Michael Greenberg's work, that a lot of what I was going through was rumination. And I'm starting now to focus more and more on rumination because I think it's very important. People have an intrusive thought which lasts a split second, and the rest of the time they spend ruminating and trying to figure everything out, which makes everything worse. Now, rumination is a compulsion. Bear with me on this, okay? Rumination is a compulsion, okay? And when you're doing a compulsion, when you're ruminating, you're sending the message, you're sending a big fucking letter to the brain saying this shouldn't be happening. I'm worried about this because it shouldn't be happening. So what happens is the mind goes into paradoxical effort, the law of reversed effect, and starts pushing back against you. So I think rumination has got a big part to play. For example, if you had an intrusive thought, what if I'm gay? And you ruminate and ruminate and ruminate and ruminate and ruminate about it, then the next thing you know, you see a naked dude, or you see someone on TV, or you see somebody at the shopping mall, or whatever the case may be, and you've ruminated so much by this point, and your mind, like I say, is pushing back against you, that you get the unwanted erection. I'm not saying that rumination is entirely responsible for this, but I think it plays a part. And I think when you learn to stop ruminating, I think that there's a possible chance that those unwanted erections will decrease. And I'll tell you something very interesting. This is going back to Billy. And there's a lot of people has heard about Billy. I've spoken about him on my earlier videos. This is interesting. One day, Billy was having so much groinal responses and false attraction, and he'd come home from work and he was really at his wit's end. And he thought, I can't take this anymore. I have to stand up to this. I have to admit I'm gay. There is no other way. He said, I've been putting up with this for such a long time. I have to confront the truth. And he pulled his pants down and he started jerking off, thinking about guys. And it was like what he described as walking through a stargate of no return. It was almost like Jesus on the cross, and it's almost like committing self-sacrifice. Almost like as if you're standing on top of a building and there's a huge spike coming up, that's like a couple of 100 feet tall, and you let yourself go and you just fall onto the spike. That's kind of how he described it at one point. So he got his dick out and he started jerking off. And I don't think he even really got properly hard. So what happened is the next day he was driving along or doing something, and all of a sudden he saw a woman and the butterflies in his stomach come back. And those sexual feelings towards women started to come back. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because he was ruminating. In the past, but the rumination the next day had stopped, funnily enough. Isn't that strange? But anyway, this is really going back to the unwanted erections. Does it mean you're gay? I'm not going to tell you either way. I'm not going to reassure you, but I am telling you what the symptoms are of OCD, and unwanted erections do happen in obsessive compulsive disorder. And while I'm here, look at this fucking giraffe. Look at this giraffe, okay? Isn't he cool? Now, if you told yourself and you absolutely demanded to yourself that you should not get an erection with this giraffe, right? Guess what's going to happen? You'll get an erection looking at the giraffe. The more you push, the more the brain will push back. How many times in your lifetime have you tried to get asleep and you can't because the brain pushes back? How many times have you lost your keys but you can't remember? It just doesn't come to you. And when you stop trying, it comes back. These are all examples of the law of reversed effect. You're trying not to laugh at somebody at an inappropriate time. What happens? You end up laughing. Same thing. When you're demanding you shouldn't get an erection, you'll get the fucking erection. And it feels real. And on the flip side of a lot of what I'm talking about, the mental habits of HOCD people are very interesting. They try desperately. Notice I'm using the word try. They try desperately to suppress thoughts. They try desperately not to get the hard on. And what happens when they try desperately? Those things happen. Now, like a negative photograph, the other type of thing happens. When they try to get a hard on with a woman, what happens? They can't get one. And what was interesting was I was talking to somebody the other day, and they had mentioned, because I was trying to rummage around in their head to see what was going on. And one of the things they were doing is when they first lost attraction to the opposite sex, what they were doing, they couldn't even jerk off. And this is common. They couldn't even jerk off in private. They just lost all desire. So I said, what are you doing? Oh, I'm visualizing the woman's pussy. And I'm trying to jerk off, but it won't get hard. And I'm trying to visualize the tits, and I'm trying to visualize, everything else. So I said, in a sense, then it's almost like checking. It's you're checking to see if you're straight. Checking to see if you're straight is the same as checking to see if you're gay. You're not dealing with uncertainty. And it's something that needs to stop. I said, one of the best things to do is stop ruminating about women's genitals. Stop thinking about them. Say to yourself, you know what? I don't feel horny right now. I don't want to know. I'm not interested. I don't want to have sex with a woman. I'm not attracted to them anymore. I'm just content being the way I am at the moment. Take the pressure off yourself, because that's what you're doing. You're putting pressure on yourself. You're putting pressure on yourself to be a particular way. This is black and white thinking. Okay? So what I want you to do, just for a second, is visualize standing in front of somebody. This could be a bully, this could be somebody you're afraid of, or this could be a naked person, okay, of the same sex. And I want you to visualize feeling the anxiety and keep looking at this person and keep looking and keep looking. Don't ruminate. Don't try to figure things out. Don't try to question anything. Be in the moment and allow the anxiety to come up. Stand with the anxiety, and when the anxiety has calmed down a little bit, take a step forward towards that person. When you feel the anxiety dropping again, however long it takes, it could take a few minutes, then step closer again. And keep doing that. Whenever your anxiety subsides, take another step closer. And stay in the situation, looking at that naked person, or looking at that bully, or whatever it is you're afraid of, until the anxiety calms down. And notice that confidence and the calming down process is a series of steps. You're in the grey area. It isn't black or white. So anyway, I've gone on a bit too long and I've digressed as I normally do, but I'd like to read you this just before I go. I want to recap on certain points before I go, okay? The law of reversed effect, paradoxical effort, the belief you have that you absolutely should not be gay is so neurotic with you that the brain is actually pushing back. It's stopping you from getting a hard-on with the opposite sex, and it's causing you to get a hard-on with the same sex. Like a negative photograph, it's inverting everything. Because you're insisting, you're demand making. You have these internal demands, and the brain is pushing back against you. You have to allow it to be. You have to allow everything to be. You have to be at one with yourself, at peace with yourself, and tell yourself, I'm not interested in women. I really don't care. If I turn out to be gay, I turn out to be gay. If I'm not horny, I'm not horny. So what? So I'm going to read this one last time from Overcoming Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts. Why do some of my thoughts feel like impulses? Even though unwanted intrusive thoughts are signs of over-control and not impulsivity, you may actually feel that you have to put a lot of effort to keep yourself from acting on the thoughts. Ring any bells? This is an illusion. They feel like impulses even though they are not. You are actually feeling the effects of anxious thinking, which is an altered state of awareness. Once your brain sends out an anxiety alarm signal, your perception of many things becomes markedly different. One very consistent change is what psychologists call thought-action fusion. And with thought-action fusion, it's kind of like when I had thoughts of my mother falling or my mother dying or whatever. I thought I was going to make it happen unless I actually did compulsions and rituals. I used to walk the corridors a certain way whilst I was working nights. So you think you're going to make it happen just because you're thinking it. In the same and in a similar way, just because you have the thought, what if I'm gay, you think unless you neutralize it in some way or whatever, you're going to make it come true. When the line between thoughts and actions becomes fuzzy and indistinct, ordinarily the differences between thoughts and actions are quite clear, and thoughts are a safe way to rehearse actions without consequences. But when you are anxious, this difference seems to fade away. When you fight hard to avoid a thought, anxiety will skyrocket, and so will your perception of the profound differences between private thoughts on the one hand and actions in the real world that have real consequences on the other. The thing with OCD people is they are trying to use the head. They're trying to use this to control this. They are trying to use conscious effort to interfere with an unconscious process. And you have to get your head out of the picture. But in order to do that, you've got to take action. And you've got to take action in confronting your fears with exposure and response prevention and doing your best to sort out the rumination. And I think I don't agree with everything Michael Greenberg says, but I will say that I think exposure and response prevention will be better and easier once you learn to stop ruminating first. So anyway, guys, that's enough from me for now, and I will see you again, hopefully very soon. So take care. Bye.